boy, happy Tuesday here at the Scarlet Faithful Podcast, episode 400. Can't believe it. It's been about 2 years, but 2 years to the end of this month that I started the Scarlet Faithful as a full-fledged website and a podcast. Last November, I transitioned out of the site and made it just a full-time podcast gig, and it's been a ton of fun. And I can't believe we're at episode 400. So wanted to cover a few things today. First, touching on Rutgers baseball and the MLB draft. A few thoughts on Rutgers football and Rutgers basketball in regards to the impact that some newcomers can make in these pivotal seasons ahead, and share a few personal just fan stories as a Rutgers fan over the years. To close it out, as always, this episode is brought to you by Knights of the Raritan, the Rutgers NIL Collective. Join their free newsletter. Click on the link in the description of this episode. They give you details on all their activities. They'll have a lot of things going on in the school year coming up. So, big fall approaching. Dog days of summer are here. Big Ten Media Day is next week. You'll have the Big Ten poll coming out. Very interested to see where Rutgers lands in an 18-team Big Ten poll. I might do a whole episode on that later in the week. We'll see. But first off, just wanted to talk about Rutgers baseball on Monday. Josh Kuroda-Grauer, the Big Ten Player of the Year, first team All-American, led the country in hits and hits per game, was second in batting average last season. Tremendous Rutgers career. Was drafted in the first pick of the third round, number 75 overall by the Oakland Athletics on Monday. I tweeted about it. Now 3 picks in a row of Rutgers players from dating back to last season. Ryan Lasko went in the second round. Then you had Drew Conover, hard-throwing reliever, was picked by Oakland last year as well, all going to the Oakland A's. Pretty exciting stuff. And then later in the day, the Cleveland Guardians drafted Donovan Zask, the pitcher for Rutgers. Great for him as well. And it's just great to see Rutgers players getting drafted. Not just, that's 2 years in a row now, multiple players getting drafted. And obviously, wish them well. It's going to be fun to track them throughout their careers in the pro ranks, and hope they go far and hope they make it to the show one day. So wanted to talk about a couple thoughts on Rutgers football with the newcomers specifically, just thinking about, all of our expectations, all of the returning starters and big time contributors from last season back. You really could make the argument that the newcomers they brought in can be the difference in terms of elevating this season. Right? If of the returnees, contributors from last season, the known entities, if they just do what we know they can do, what difference will those newcomers make? So on offense, there's 3 very obvious newcomers that have a chance to make a huge impact for Rutgers football. Demir Miller, FCS All-American from Monmouth. Can he be the guy? Can he be the number 1 playmaker in the pass game? Can he be a reliable big-time receiver in the Big Ten for Rutgers football? A lot of people around the program feel like he can be. And he obviously had a very good career at the FCS level, 4 years there. So can that transition into being, the number 1 guy on the scouting report? Most likely. There's a big adjustment period for him, but he's a super talented player that I think could end up being the type of playmaker that we've yearned for in a while, going back to, Leonte Carew, the guy that you can get the ball in his hands. He's going to make things happen, and he's going to make an impact on every game. Demir Miller would be that. And, those are lofty expectations coming in. That's what they need. There's a gap to fill there. And by all accounts, he is the best candidate to fill that. So it never works out exactly how you think. I'm sure there's going to be a newcomer in the wide. There's going to be a wide receiver that we're not thinking about that hopefully will make an impact next season. But I think Demir Miller, if he can be close to what everybody hopes he can, his yards after catch, his ability to stretch the field, stretch the defense, his ability to pick up yards after the catch, being reliable on third down, being reliable in the red zone. Those are all things that if he can bring to the table, the Rutgers offense will be elevated. Obviously, Ethan Kaliakmanis, the quarterback from Minnesota, has to be the guy to deliver the ball to him. Can he stretch the field? We saw a little bit of that in the spring game. It's interesting. There's a lot of positive thoughts out there from the national media. You're seeing there's if you're on social media, there's a social media account on X, Gopher Crew. He's super optimistic about Rutgers basketball. He was super negative about Rutgers football last week. I think he picked them 15th out of 18 teams. And his biggest caveat was he has no confidence in Nathan Kaliakmanis. Now, this is a Minnesota fan, right? But what I think one thing that's getting missed in terms of evaluating Kaliakmanis' potential at Rutgers is the fact that his best performances at the college level in the Big Ten at Minnesota was with Kirk Ciarrocca as his offensive coordinator. So I think the familiarity there, Ciarrocca knowing what he has to work with Kaliakmanis' familiarity with Ciarrocca, I think he's going to get the most out of him, whatever that may be. That might not be, it's probably not going to be a 65, 67% completion rate for a passer, right? But if he can get in the low 60s, if he can minimize turnovers, if he can complete first down throws, if he can move the chains and allow Rutgers to throw teams off balance a little bit and be able to use their bread and butter with that run game, with a complementary pass game, that's going to be a huge step forward as well. And then probably not talked about enough, probably will be once we get to camp, Shredrick Rhodes, the right tackle transfer from Ohio, can play guard as well, but can he solidify that right tackle spot? Obviously, Tyler Needham coming off of injury. Reggie Sutton battled back from incredible odds in terms of his injuries and his career. Both are in the mix, but they brought Shredrick Rhodes in for a reason, and that is to solidify that right tackle spot. And if he can do that and elevate the play of the offensive line, then it all kind of gels. But obviously, those three players, huge, huge, huge potential to elevate the Rutgers offense this coming season. A returning player, but a position switch, Kenny Fletcher, tight end. Can he be a reliable presence as a blocker and as a pass catcher? You know, he's not going to be asked to do so much, but if he can bring to the table where he, can move the chains on third down, get a few catches here and there and be a reliable blocker, he's going to be a huge impact on this offense as well. I'm really excited for him. Obviously, I talked about him a lot on the defensive end. He's such a great athlete, and they're really high on his potential. You obviously have Victor Konopka there. You have Mike Higgins. You have some of the younger guys as well. But if Kenny Fletcher can solidify the tight end position, that'd be a huge game for Rutgers. On the defensive side, Malcolm Ray, interior lineman from Florida State, and his potential to make an impact for the defense. That defensive line, they have to find a rotation. They have to be able to play really 8 guys that they feel comfortable with that can hold up throughout the season and be able to switch and matchups and keep guys fresh. And, if you're relying on 5, 6 guys, it's going to take a toll down the stretch, which you've seen before. And in terms of interior linemen, Malcolm Ray has a chance to make a huge impact. And then another returnee that we're all hoping can step up, former 4-star linebacker Moses Walker, had an injury early in his career. Tyrone Powell currently out. He's slated to return. But with Mo Toure, his versatility, being able to move him around, if Moses Walker can assert himself and be a reliable presence at the linebacker spot as well, Rutgers is going to be that much more versatile on the defensive end. So that possibility to have a lot of young guys on defense looking to make that too deep, looking to make an impact. But those 6 guys, in terms of the 4 transfers, those 2 returnees that have a chance to ascend into bigger roles this year in Fletcher and Walker, that was just something I thought about just in terms of looking at the dynamic of the 24 season. As we're a week out from Big Ten Media Days, Rutgers appearing at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis on Tuesday, July 23rd. Greg Schiano, Tyrone Powell, Mo Toure, Kyle Monungai, they'll all be there. Live coverage on BTN. We'll break it down as well. We'll get some video from there as well. Plenty more to come on that. And then I wanted to shout out a couple people I really respect in terms of the college basketball world on social media. Ant Wright, my old partner, he did a great video on PJ Hayes and the impact that he could have as a transfer wing, 3-point shooter for Rutgers. He's going to do some more videos on the transfers that Rutgers has added to its roster. So check that out. I tweeted it on X. And then also Joe Jackson, who does a great job with video breakdowns. He's breaking down all the freshmen for Rutgers right now. So yesterday he put out Dylan Grant and Dylan Harper complete breakdowns on what they bring to the table. Dylan Grant is just one of those guys, and this goes back to football too. Like, as much as we have expectations for these teams, there's guys on these teams that we don't know what impact they're going to make, and they could end up being huge contributors to both football and basketball next season. Dylan Grant is a guy defensively, he fits Peichel style, he's versatile, he's athletic. I think he could end up being a factor for Rutgers basketball this coming season. And obviously, Dylan Harper, when people talk about Rutgers has a lot of freshmen, there's a cap there, there's a ceiling there. I don't think people realize the level that Dylan Harper is coming in at, experience in terms of his pedigree, in terms of his basketball IQ, the way he plays under control. I just am so excited to see him run the show for Rutgers at the rack this winter. It's gonna, as much of a talent as Ace Bailey is and has the higher ceiling as an NBA prospect. Dylan Harper, I think, is as college ready as a point guard, combo guard that you're ever going to get. And that's why I kind of dismiss the whole, not dismiss, but I'm less concerned about the whole freshman argument that Rutgers is going to be so inexperienced, because I think you're going to see Dylan Harper grow exponentially throughout the season and really come in at a level that, he's played internationally. He led Team USA last year, FIBA U19 in assists. As talented as he is as a playmaker, as a creator on offense, he knows how to find his teammates. He knows he just has a feel for the game. Father with his brother, all of that, his mother, player, coach. He's got a natural feel for the game, and I think his impact is going to be exponential on this team. So those two newcomers, check out those videos. Joe Jackson, I know, it's got more coming out. So Bryce Dortch, Lathan Somerville, and Ace Bailey will come out soon. I'll tweet those out as well. Just go to my account, Aaron_Brightman on Twitter, and anything new that Ant Wright comes out with as well, I will put out there. Both content creators, they do great breakdown videos. I'll have a couple coming out before the season as well. So I'll keep you abreast of that. The Scarlet Faithful 400th episode. Plan to do 4,000 more, hopefully. Who knows? I've done 100. I look back since I went to podcast only. It was right after Thanksgiving, so about 7.5 months. Done 175 episodes. Can't wait for the season to start when I'm doing previews, when I'm doing rapid reactions. We're in the middle of July right now. Content. Got to be creative. I think I have been. Really appreciate everyone following along. One kind of story I just wanted to give, just in terms of my background as a fan. We've all been to so many impactful games in our lives as Rutgers fans. Last week was BTN Day for Rutgers Sports. They showed the Virginia Tech Rutgers football game from 1992, Halloween. I was at that game as a teenager, rushed the field. That was an incredible game. Some of the other games I've been to, I was at the 1989 Atlantic 10 championship game when Rutgers beat Penn State. A lot of people say the Rack was the loudest it's ever been in that game. I was behind the basket at section 118. As an almost 12-year-old, it was an exhilarating experience. I'll never forget it. And certainly was a highlight in terms of other memorable games I've been to. The 98 quarterfinal at the Garden, Jeff Billett at the buzzer. I was right there. I remember UConn fans high-fiving me. That was a little weird. The first great run the Steve Pikiell's programs were able to put together at the 2018 Big Ten tournament at Madison Square Garden. Talked about that last week. Corey Sanders in my podcast there. All the Seton Hall wins of the Steve Pikiell era were amazing to be at. One memorable game, and I've written about this. I think I've talked about it a little bit, but my senior year when they lost to Seton Hall, this was 2000 at the Rack. I was in the student section. We all painted ourselves red. It was a disaster. One of my friends ended up in the hospital. It was just brutal to walk out. And that was when reality hit, that my college career was coming to an end, and the reality of life, having to get a job, all that. It all hit me leaving a Rutgers Seton Hall game when I knew that Rutgers was not going to make the NCAA tournament. My dream as a student never happened. And walking out a cold night in the Rack parking lot, reality truly bit. And I'll never forget that moment, because I was like, yeah, okay, now it's real. And I got to figure out what I'm going to do in my life. Fortunately, more or less has worked out. No, it has. And that was a memorable game for me. Football, I was at 2006 Louisville. I was in the front row of the top deck, right around the 40, 50-yard line. That was incredible. I've talked about I elbowed someone when some big play happened in the fourth quarter, and I had to catch her. So good thing she didn't fall over. But that was an incredible experience for everyone that was there. I did not rush the field. I sat there on the top deck and I just soaked it all in. It was an incredible experience, and hopefully something that we will top as Rutgers fans one day. I was at the first Big East football game when Rutgers beat Boston College. What was that, 92? I was at the first Thursday night football game when they played Pitt at home, even when they played at the Meadowlands all those years ago. I mean, I remember seeing them play Duke, Penn State. I've been to Happy Valley and seen Rutgers play at Penn State. Obviously, not winning those games. The epic loss was 2012. It was a story that was told at my friend's wedding. They were, up on Louisville 17-3, and my friend was yapping at halftime. It was in the corridor, by concessions and going on and on and on about how Rutgers was going to go to the Orange Bowl and he can't believe it and blah, 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 blah. And I freaked out. I told him to, in not so many words, stop talking. Won't use the profanity-laced tirade I went into, but it was retold at his wedding. And we know how that infamous holding call on the trick play that would have put Rutgers up 3 scores, called back. Teddy Bridgewater limps out on one leg and beats Rutgers, and they have to share the Big East title, and they do not go to the Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl, whatever it may have been. That was a true heartbreaker. They lose to Virginia Tech in that ugly bowl game. And that was probably the most talented defense Rutgers ever had. I think there were, I don't know how many pros were on that team. There were so many. I think that was the year they had 7 draft picks. But that one sticks out to me. I was not at the 2006 West Virginia game. I was working a late shift at Lincoln Center in the restaurant business, came home, taped it, started watching it like 1, 2 in the morning, and watched all the way through triple overtime to like 5 in the morning. That was, I'll never forget that one. As fans, we go through so much. You have to embrace the past. You have to embrace the tough defeats, because that's what makes the journey that much sweeter. I'll end it on this. My craziest story as a Rutgers fan was 2004 Thanksgiving. They played UConn at home. I think it was like an 11 o'clock kickoff. I was working in Boston at the time, and I wanted to surprise my mom for Thanksgiving. I wanted to tailgate with my friends at the Rutgers game first. So I had this plan. I'm going to go down. I'm going to go to the game early, tailgate, watch the game early. I can still get home for Thanksgiving mid-afternoon, surprise my mom. It'll be a great day. They're going to beat UConn, all that stuff. And then I realized there was no trains, planes, or buses leaving Boston early enough for me to get there, late enough for me to get there. I was working night shift at the stadium. I was the AGM there. That we won Best New Sports Bar in Boston 2004 when the Red Sox and Patriots both won it all. So that was something. And as everybody knows in the restaurant bar business, the night before Thanksgiving is the craziest night of the year. So I worked that night and I was strategizing. How am I going to get home? So that bar was in Southie. I lived in Beacon Hill at the time. So I used to take cabs all the time late after work. And I ended up talking to this cabbie that I kind of was a regular with. And he was crazy enough to say, you know what? I'll drive you. So we got in the cab. We made plans. I went home. I showered. He picked me up. This was probably like 3 in the morning, 3:30. And boom, he takes me down. We're on the Mass Pike. Have you ever been in an old school cab on the highway? I do not recommend it with those bucket seats. I'm like sinking down. It's noisy as hell. The car is making an abnormally loud sound. Obviously, it's going faster than normal on the Mass Pike. But he tells me, oh, the restrictor plate over the engine, that's not there. And then I see him turning the wheel all the way to the left. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, my alignment is off and I kind of have to hold it this way to keep the car going straight. So I'm going down the Mass Pike, 4 a.m., exhausted after work, heading down to Rutgers to tailgate with my friends and then see my family on Thanksgiving. And I'm just thinking, God, I hope I get there. And luckily, I fell asleep through the noise. And I wake up and it's light out. We're getting close to Piscataway. We get to Piscataway. I said, listen, get me as close to the stadium as you can. We pull up, now SHI Stadium, and Rutgers police, comes up to the window. And the cabbie goes, listen, I drove this guy all the way from Boston. He's an alum. He's a longtime Rutgers fan. I drove him all the way from Boston. I got to get him up to the stadium. So I'll never forget, the Rutgers police officer radios to his boss, to whoever, and says, hey, Captain, you're not going to believe this. And he's like, I got a cabbie here from Boston, blah, 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 blah. Tells the story. Get the okay. Lets the cabbie up. Drops me off right in front of the stadium where my friends were tailgating. And it was just an epic day in terms of making that trip, seeing my friends. Rutgers lost a heartbreaker. I think it was like 42-35. They lost to UConn. But nothing made it more rewarding than getting home and seeing the look on my mom's face when I surprised her for Thanksgiving. That was a crazy experience just in terms of travel. I've talked about my travel before and, wanting to get from destination point A to point B as soon as possible. But that was the craziest cab ride. I think I paid like $350. And I remember he ran the tab just to see what it would be. It was like over $500. This is way before dating myself, the days of Uber and Lyft and all that stuff. This was a true old school yellow cab from Boston that drove me 5 hours down to Piscataway, got there at like 8 a.m. And it was one of the best tailgates I've ever been to. Unfortunately, Rutgers lost the game. But just give you a little bit more about myself, my time as a Rutgers fan, as we all go through this great journey together. And I appreciate all of you that listen and watch the Scarlet Faithful podcast on a somewhat regular occasion. And I just couldn't be more excited for the future of Rutgers athletics. And I appreciate you going through all this with me. Episode 400. Can't believe it. Can't wait to get to episode 401 coming out on Wednesday. I do a full breakdown of Power 4 offers and Big Ten offers for the 2025 class to show the progress that Rutgers football is making in terms of recruiting. I like to look at what programs are pursuing players that ultimately commit at Rutgers. And that, I think, is one way to look at how the talent level improves. And the results were striking. I couldn't believe how much improvement Rutgers has had in that area. So that episode's going to come out on Wednesday. It's already done. Just got to edit it. So keep an eye out for that. I hope you enjoyed this episode as well. Thanks so much for listening and watching the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again.